Chapter 4. Brother Methuselah was busy with a small brush and a pot of black ink. As he brushed the dust of ages from each letter on the wall, he filled it in with ink. This would make it easier to read the message that had been graven underneath the tapestry.
Matthias, there you are,
Methuselah squeaked. He blinked over the top of his glasses at the young mouse.
Look, this is something I want you to see. Quite by accident, I discovered this writing beneath where Martin's picture once hung.
Matthias was full of unconcealed excitement.
What does it say, Brother Methuselah?
He cried. The old gatekeeper sneezed as he brushed more dust from the lettering on the wall.
All in good time, young mouse. Here, make yourself useful. You brush the dust off the words while I ink them in. Between us, we'll soon get it done.
Matthias set to work with an energetic goodwill. He scrubbed vigorously, sending up clouds of dust. Between sneezes, Methuselah hurried to keep pace with him. 1 hour later, they both sat on the stone floor, drinking October ale to quench the dust while they admired their handiwork.
It's written in the old hand,
said Methuselah,
but I can read it clear enough.
Matthias jostled him boisterously.
What does it say, old one? Hurry up and read it to me. Patience, you young scallywag,
chided the ancient mouse.
Be quiet and listen. It takes the form of a poem. Who says that I am dead knows not at all. I am, that is, 2 mice within Redwall. The warrior sleeps twixt hall and cavern hole. I am, that is, take on my mighty role. Look for the sword in moonlight streaming forth. At night, when day's first hour reflects the north. From o'er the threshold seek, and you will see. I am, that is, my sword will wield for me.
Matthias blinked and scratched his head. He looked at Methuselah.
Well, what did all that mean? It's a riddle to me. Precisely, said the old mouse. It is indeed a riddle. But don't worry, Matthias. We will solve it together. I have sent for food and drink. You and I will not move from here until we have the answer.
Shortly afterwards, Cornflower arrived bearing a tray of breakfast for them both. Nut bread, salad, milk, and some of Friar Hugo's special quince pie. She was about to strike up a conversation with Matthias when Methuselah sent her packing.
Shoo! Away with you, little field mouse! I need Matthias with a clear brain to help me solve an important problem, so run along.
Cornflower winked at Matthias, shook her head at Methuselah, and walked off with mock dignity, her nose high in the air. Matthias watched her go until Methuselah tweaked his ear.
Pay attention now, young mouse. We must study this bit by bit. Let's take the first 2 lines. Who says that I am dead knows not at all.
Matthias waved a paw. His mouth filled with salad, he mumbled, But we know that Martin is dead. Methuselah took a sip of milk, pulled a wry face, and reached for his October ale.
But if we suppose that he is dead, then the words tell us we know nothing at all. So, let us assume that he is alive.
What? Do you mean Martin, alive and walking about? Said Matthias. We'd recognize him, unless, that is, he was disguised as someone else. The old gatehouse keeper choked, spluttering ale over his habit.
Good grief! I never looked at it that way. Very good, young one. Maybe the answer is in the next 2 lines. What do they say? I am, that is, 2 mice within Redwall.
Matthias repeated the words, but he could make no sense of them.
I am, that is. What is? 2 mice within Redwall. 2 mice it tells of. Of 2 mice in 1,
replied Methuselah. They sat silent a while, both racking their brains. Matthias mentioned something that was bothering him as he looked at the graven lines. What I cannot understand is that sort of dash. Look, I am that is. Do you see? There's a small dash between the words I and am. In fact, the same dash occurs 3 times throughout the rhyme. Here, here, and here. Matthias pointed. Methuselah adjusted his glasses and peered closely.
Yes, you may have something there. It could be the key to the whole thing. I am that is. Let's say that the dash separates the line, so that we will look at the 3 words, am that is. Suppose we took that part out, then read it. Then it would read, I, 2 mice within Redwall.
Matthias shook his head.
What do you make of that? Complete nonsense,
replied the old mouse.
Let's stick with am that is.
Sounds all mixed up to me, Matthias grumbled. Methuselah looked up sharply.
Say that again.
Say what again? You mean that it all sounds mixed up to me? Methuselah executed a little jig of delight. He patted the wall with his paw, shouting,
That's it! That's it! Why couldn't I see it? It's all mixed up, of course.
The old mouse took a great draught of ale. Cackling with glee, he pointed a paw at Matthias.
I know something that you don't know, and that is Matthias.
The young mouse frowned. So, the old one had finally cracked. He was in his 2nd infancy.
Methuselah,
he said kindly.
Hadn't you better lie down a while?
But the old gatehouse keeper kept pointing. He began to chant.
Matthias, I that am. Matthias, you that are.
The young mouse stood tapping his tail in exasperation. I wish you'd tell me what you're so excited about, he said severely. Why are you saying my name? Methuselah wiped tears of laughter from his eyes as he explained.
When you said it was all mixed up, that got me thinking. Martin was talking of 2 mice, himself and another. Ergo, Martin is represented by the word I. The other mouse is am that is. All mixed up. Now do you see?
Matthias leaned against the wall. I'm afraid I don't follow you.
Oh, you young booby,
Methuselah giggled.
I mixed the letters up and rearranged them. It's your own name. And that is Matthias.
Are you sure? Said Matthias in astonishment.
Of course I'm sure,
replied Methuselah.
It couldn't mean anything else. Your name has 8 letters in it. So has am that is. An M, 2 A's, 2 T's, an H, an I, and an S. Whichever way you look at it, Matthias, or am that is, comes out the same.
Methuselah, do you realize what this means? The old mouse sat down beside him, nodding gravely.
Oh, yes, indeed I do. It means that Martin somehow knew that one day he would live on through you.
Matthias was staggered. He knew about me. Martin the warrior knew my name. Can you imagine that? The enormity of it overwhelmed them both. For several minutes they sat, no word passing between them. Suddenly, Matthias leapt to his feet. Right, let's get on with it. Look at these lines. The warrior sleeps twixt hall and cavern hole. I am that is, take on my mighty role.
Well, the last 2 lines are pretty clear,
said Methuselah.
They mean that Martin, carrying on through you, has a great task to perform.
What about the first 2 lines? Matthias said.
They seem fairly obvious, too. Between Great Hall and Cavern Hole, there is a flight of stairs. Come on, old mouse.
In spite of his advanced years, Methuselah gripped Matthias's paw and ran so fast that the younger mouse had difficulty in keeping up. Between Great Hall and Cavern Hole, there were 7 stone steps. The problem was, which one held the answer?
Thinking caps on again,
Said the old mouse.
let's make a close inspection of these steps.
Together, they examined the stone steps minutely, going back over each one several times. Matthias sat on the bottom step. He shrugged.
They appear to be 7 ordinary broad stone steps. Nothing special. Quite the same as any other set of stairs in the Abbey, wouldn't you say?
Methuselah was forced to agree. After sitting a while and letting his eyes roam about, Matthias remarked,
I've just noticed something. The name of our abbey is carved into the wall as you go up the steps on the left-hand side, and also as you descend on the right-hand wall. It reads Redwall, either way.
Methuselah walked up and down the steps, testing what Matthias had said.
Yes, so it does. Do you see that each letter is 1 step's width? 7 letters for 7 steps. Surely that must be some kind of hint.
Again, the 2 friends sat to ponder the mystery. This time, it was Matthias's turn to become excited and point a paw at his companion.
I know something you don't know.
Methuselah pursed his lips in annoyance.
You know, Matthias, for a mouse that claims affinity with Martin the Warrior, you can be singularly foolish sometimes.
No more foolish than you were when you were saying the same thing to me not so long ago,
Matthias retorted. Methuselah coughed and cleaned his spectacles on his habit.
Yes. Well, I apologize. Now, please, tell me what you have discovered.
Matthias explained.
If you place the word Redwall running both ways as it does here, you will notice that only 1 letter occurs in the same place, the letter W. Furthermore, if you were to turn a W upside down, it becomes a letter M, which stands for Martin. Matthias? Oh, and also for Methuselah, my old friend.
Well, curl my whiskers. The young scoundrel has a brain, and it works, too. It's got to be the 4th step, the middle one, up or down.
The step in question proved to be as solid and unmoving as its counterparts. Even with their combined strength, the friends could not budge it a fraction. Matthias wiped sweat from his brow.
Take a breather, old one. I know who can handle this. Formal and his team.
The moles were not long in arriving. They gathered around the step, sniffing and scratching. Formal exercised his authority, clearing them out of his way.
You're moles, get out in the light. There's some dog-out bone there.
Formal paced the length of the step, then shuffled sideways over it. He tapped it with his great digging claws. He sniffed it, licked it, and rubbed it with his velvet head.
What are you gentlebees knowing about in this here step?
He asked. Together, they related all the information to the attentive Formal. He blinked short-sightedly as he ruminated.
4th and upwards, same downwards. Wort, Ark, Dobie! Ain't that same as your grandmam do find when she wrote about olden tim fortifications?
What's he saying?
Whispered Matthias. Methuselah translated the curious mole dialect.
Formal said the 4th step upwards is the same as the 4th step down. That much we already knew. Then he consulted the 2 mole brothers, Walt and Dobie. It seems the step is the same as the one found by their grandmother when she was exploring an old-fashioned castle or fortification. Moles are very sensible creatures, you know, and I think they have the answer to our problem.
Good old Formal,
said Matthias.
Hush! Let's hear what Walt and Dobie have to say?
whispered Methuselah. The two mole brothers respectfully tugged their noses to Formal before answering. That'n't be true, sir.
A grandman, Sim Fang lots of them.
Why, that she do. Never digging nor breaking, just turn 'em after dusting. Methuselah interpreted to Matthias.
Apparently, their grandmother was somewhat of an authority on steps such as these. The clever old mole would neither dig nor break them. Evidently, she could turn the step over once she had brushed it.
Matthias addressed Formal courteously.
Excuse me, sir, but do you know how to deal with this step now? If you do, then my friend and I would be only too willing to help you.
Formal smiled, his whole face almost vanishing into dark velvet wrinkles. He clapped Matthias on the shoulder in a chummy way. The young mouse was amazed at the weight and strength of Formal's paw. He was glad that it was a friendly pat. Formal chuckled deeply. Nay, bless your little heart, Matwise. You and old Methuselah be but mouses. Best leave her to Formal. I'll deal with 'em,
He says he can cope adequately without either of us.
said Methuselah. Formal produced a thick, fine-haired hand-brush from his tunneling kit. Bending close, he brushed furiously at the upper and lower insteps of the fourth stone. As he swept, he snuffled and blew, following the path of his brush. It soon became apparent that the stone had been cunningly jointed. The dust came away to reveal a continuous hairline crack, which ran around the edges of the step. Next, Formal rummaged in his kit and came up with a tin of grease and a strong, thin bar, one end of which was flattened like a spatula. Smearing the grease liberally on top of the third step, Formal inserted the flat metal tip against the base of the fifth step. He dealt the blunt end of the bar a smart blow, setting it firmly into the crack. With a swift movement, he levered the fourth step an inch forward, exposing a long, dark gap. With a grunt of satisfaction, Formal called out to his team, "Your moles, gather round and set your digging claws in 'em crack." The mole team dug their claws into the gap, chanting together as they heaved with a will. "Here she come, even you please, moving boulder slide on grease." To the astonishment of the watching mice, the step slid smoothly outwards on the greased stone. It turned completely over to reveal a dark opening with a downward flight of stairs, running off into the blackness below.